There once was a house whose physical address was 1122 King Road, but that address was a little bit confusing because the front of the property didn't face King Road, it faced Queen Road. And the house that once stood there was located in Moscow, Idaho, a small town in Latah County. This house had been used for many years as rentals to University of Idaho students. It must have been a great perk for them to be able to walk just steps away and be on the University of Idaho campus when they left the property in a matter of minutes, and be able to maybe run home for lunch and then go back if there were later classes. The house was comprised of 3 floors. There were 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor, 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor, and 2 bedrooms on the 1st floor. And there was a catastrophe that hit that house on November 13th, 2022, that permeated throughout the house, but was primarily confined to the 2nd and the 3rd floors, because it was within those 2 bedrooms, one on the 2nd, one on the 3rd floor, that Moscow Police Department, responding to a call for assistance on November 13th, 2022, found a catastrophic event, that 2 students were located in the 2nd floor, were unalived, and 2 were on the 3rd floor. The 2 students on the 2nd floor were Xana Kernodle, who had rented that bedroom, and with her as her guest was her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin. On the 3rd floor were lifelong friends, Kaylee Gonzalez and Madison Mogan. They were found in Madison's bedroom. Also on the 3rd floor was Kaylee's dog, Murphy. When I started my podcast on Spotify originally, it was with the intention of being a true crime podcast, maybe looking at a few different current true crime cases, focusing on the court filings. But this case always impressed me as one that if I was going to report on it, it really required exclusive attention, just because of all of the different issues that were involved, just how tragic it was also that, these were young college students who were at school. They were working on their degrees. Undoubtedly, as those of us who know what it is and what a commitment it is and how hard it is to get a college degree, we're hoping for a better future. On November 13th, 2022, there were 2 other students who were in that house. They're referred to as the surviving roommates. They very fortunately escaped without physical injuries, although one wonders what the mental distress and psychological distress that they may be suffering, how that's impacted them, and how it's going to impact them for the rest of their lives. And then there's the family and friends of all whose lives have undoubtedly also been changed forever. The first 18 episodes of my podcast, called Idaho versus Kohberger, focused on the Affidavit of Probable Cause. But at this point in time, with some of the evidence finally being made public, what I wanted to do was to go back and relook at this Affidavit of Probable Cause once again, to see if, after all this time, additional information can be gleaned that we didn't know about, maybe upon our first or our second, or in my case, multiple reads of this document, because the evidence was under lock and key for so long until this year, until really the past month or 2, when Judge Stephen J. Hippler decided to begin releasing some of the information kept under seal from the public for a very long time. So I want to begin by looking at page 1 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause. This is the statement of Brett Payne, and it reads as follows. The below information is provided by Brett Payne, who is a duly appointed, qualified, and acting peace officer within the county of Latah, state of Idaho. Brett Payne is employed by the Moscow Police Department in the official capacity or position of corporal and has been a trained and qualified peace officer for approximately 4 years. Corporal Payne is being assisted by members of the Idaho State Police and agents of the feds. On November 13th, 2022, at approximately 4 p.m., Moscow Police Department, Sergeant Blacker and I responded to 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho. Hereafter, the King Road residents to assist with scene security and processing of a crime scene associated with 4 unalivings, and upon our arrival, the Idaho State Police forensic team was on scene and preparing to begin processing the scene. MPD Officer Smith, first name is Corbin Smith, one of the initial responding officers to the scene, advised he would walk me through the scene. And I wonder how, being one of the initial responding officers, this impacted him. Because what we do know from one of the in limine motions that will be entertained by Judge Hippler on the 9th and 10th of April, and that will be ruled upon by him, there is a motion to exclude inflammatory evidence that the defense has filed. And one of them talks about the emotional reactions of some law enforcement. It doesn't give the names. It doesn't really matter who they were, but it does say that they want that type of inflammatory evidence coming out. It just, I think, reminds us that they must have been impacted terribly when they responded to the property. The Affidavit of Probable Cause continues. Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the property. Officer Smith and I walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernodle's hereinafter Kernodle room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body later identified as Kernodle's laying on the floor. Kernodle was no longer alive, with wounds that appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapin, hereinafter Chapin. Chapin was also unalived, with wounds later determined, and then there's autopsy report provided by Spokane County Medical Examiner, and the name is redacted, dated December 15th, 2022, to be caused by sharp force injuries. We're now on page 2 of the Affidavit of Probable Cause. I then followed Officer Smith upstairs to the 3rd floor of the residence. The 3rd floor consisted of 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. The bedroom on the west side of the floor was later determined to be Kaylee Gonzalez, hereinafter Gonzalez's room. I later learned from review of Officer Nunez's body cam there was a dog in the room when Moscow police officers initially responded. The dog belonged to Gonzalez and her ex-boyfriend, Jack DeCore. I found out from my interview with Jack DeCore on November 13th, 2022, that he and Gonzalez shared the dog. Officer Smith then pointed out a small bathroom on the east side of the 3rd floor. This bathroom shared a wall with Madison Mogan's hereinafter Mogan bedroom, which was situated on the southeast corner of the 3rd floor. As I entered the bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed in the room. Both Gonzalez and Mogan were unalived with visible wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath lying on the bed next to Mogan's right side when viewed from the door. The sheath, it continues, was later processed and had K-Bar, USMC, and the United States Marine Corps Eagle, Globe, and Anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA, referred to here in parentheses as suspect profile, left on the button snap of the sheath. As part of this investigation, numerous interviews were conducted by Moscow Police Department officers, Idaho State Police detectives, and federal agents. 2 of the interviews included BF and DM. Both BF and DM were inside the King Road residence at the time of the homicides, at the time of the unalivings, and were roommates of the victims. BF's bedroom was located on the east side of the first floor of the King Road residence. And just some comments here regarding what we've heard on page 2. There were 2 surviving roommates, the BF and DM. BF's room was located on the first floor. We found out later through this affidavit of probable cause that DM was on the second floor, and she actually saw the perpetrator and gave a description. Another thing I wanted to point out here is that this second officer, who's named here as one of the responding officers, that's Officer Nunez. And in some of the other items that have been released recently, 911 call and the transcript and some other information, we learned that he's speaking with the people that were on the 911 call at the time when Moscow Police Department arrived. We're going to continue our review of the Affidavit of Probable Cause as it begins on page 3, continuing this look back at what this 18-page document is, as we now have further information about the case. This is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.